Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, General Cotton, General Whiting, to both of you for being here this morning and for your service. Senator Kelly asked what we could be doing to deter our adversaries, what else we could be doing to deter our adversaries. And General Cotton, I appreciated the time we spent yesterday. And one of the things we talked about was just how critical passing the supplemental bill and getting a budget process that's regular, that can be depended on, is to ensuring that you can accomplish your mission. Is that correct?
Senator Shaheen, yes, it was great speaking with you yesterday, and you're right. And I think I would even capture, CRs, continuing resolutions for us, especially in my platform where everything that I own is being modernized. I think folks are quick to not realize that there's new START programs that are embedded in these large programs that folks will think are already underway. And I had just mentioned that to Senator Schmidt, for example. They're building a new bomber campus for sustainment not only of the B-52, but the B-21 moving forward. A continuing resolution could actually perturb that. If you perturb anything within a larger program, it actually subsequently can affect the program overall. And then we have the conversations of a program slipping. So yes, stable budget, on-time budgets are incredibly critical for us as we're making this modernization, not only across my portfolio, but across the entire Department of Defense portfolios.
And can you speak to what's in the National Security Supplemental Bill that we passed out of the Senate that's critical to our defense industrial base, and why that matters as you're looking at rebuilding, ensuring that the nuclear triad remains credible?
Yes, Senator. As we had the conversation, embedded in that, even though the majority not necessarily part of my portfolio, but it does touch on the industrial base, the defense industrial base, which touches all of our portfolios, if you will, in regards of how do we strengthen that? Because I think that's foundational for our nation. It's more than even a Department of Defense issue. And
one of the things that I think you alluded to was the sort of end game that we're at with Russia in terms of bilateral negotiations on any sort of a New START treaty or an effort to reduce nuclear weapons. But can you talk about Putin's recent rhetoric around using nuclear weapons and how concerned you are about that?
Yes, thank you, Senator. The conversation we had is I absolutely am a proponent, of treaties, but everyone has to play, and you have to follow the rules. Yes, would I love to see China step up and want to have a negotiation with us? Would I love to see Russia come back? Absolutely. But I'm also a realist to understand that may or may not happen. So as a combatant commander, my job is to understand how do I build a force that I can present to the president if that doesn't happen. But to your point on what we're seeing in the rhetoric, I think what we're seeing is the president of the Russian Federation sees that he can use that as a coercion tool to threaten in regards to what he has as far as a nuclear force.
General Whiting, Starlink and other commercial satellite ventures have been a complement to our operations in space, but of course there have been some issues around how those are being used, and we have to ensure that we have the appropriate mechanisms in place to guarantee access. So how should we be thinking about that, and what are you doing to mitigate the risk that we might have by relying on a commercial source for some of those services?
Senator, thank you for the question. I would point to two aspects, I think, which help mitigate that risk. Number one is, in all of my experience, I have only known that every company we have contracted with for satellite communications and other space services, they have always fulfilled their contractual obligations to us. And I would expect that going forward, and so we want to make sure we're writing those contracts smartly on what we need and ensure that we're getting that. And then secondly, Senator, I would point to the fact, for example, in satellite communications, we want a hybrid architecture where there are some constellations we need purpose-built for the government, exclusive use of the government. For example, in our work in support of General Cotton, as we provide nuclear command and control, protected communications to assure the President, the Secretary of Defense, and General Cotton always can communicate to their forces, we want that to be a government-owned constellation. But then there's other communication requirements that we absolutely can go to commercial for. So I think it's understanding what those highest priority, unique military requirements are, and then satisfying those through our own systems, and then using commercial to the max extent we can. That's how we can help mitigate risk.
Good. Well, thank you. I have some other questions, but I'll save those for the closed session.